Counting down from 5, 4, 3, 2. All right, if it's Tuesday, that can mean only one thing. It means it's time for you and me to hang out and talk about comic books and the craft and business of making comic books. My name is Buddy Scalera, and I am the host of your show. And I'll be talking today with two very impressive people who will share their thoughts on what's happening in the comic book market as it relates to Kickstarter and other crowdfunding. I know you love this stuff, and I do too. So we take a deep dive into it. It's not so much a how-to, but more of what's going on that'll help for you to explore more and discover where you might fit in, support campaigns that you love, but also maybe put your own book up there. You know, I've had a book up there. Yes, that's right. Your favorite former Marvel Comics writer and award-winning comic book, blah, blah, blah. Nah, this is really going bad. I hate talking about myself like this. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring on my first guest, Darren Sanchez. Darren, welcome to Comic Book School Live.
Thank you, buddy. Hello, everybody.
That's right. Now, Darren is an award-winning editor, right, Darren?
Yeah, I don't like talking about myself either, so I'll talk about you, buddy. Buddy's an award-winning writer.
Yes, we're both award-winning writers, and darn good that we brought someone in who is not an award winner. Maybe he's won some awards. Darren, please welcome Mike Ponce.
Hello. I'm number one in my mother's heart. Beat that.
You certainly are. You certainly are. Okay, guys. So tonight we're going to be talking about a very important topic that's relevant to comic book creators, and that it is crowdfunding. I have done some crowdfunding for the Apocalypse Boulevard comic book series. Mike Ponce has designed artwork for quite a few, including one that's ongoing, not just on Kickstarter, but on other platforms. And Darren, I know you've packaged books for different creators. So real quick, for people who are not yet aware, my name is Buddy Scalera. Of course, I'm the host of the show. Darren, tell them who you are and what you do.
Okay, I'm Darren Sanchez. I was an editor at Marvel for 6 years, left a couple of years ago after COVID. I am the president of After Hours Press, and I do comics for clients now, custom comics, a lot of advertising type things, work with NFTs, make animations, do all kinds of creative stuff.
Well, that's awesome. Darren, you're having a lot of choppiness. I'm wondering if while we introduce Mike, you might either want to reboot or kick anybody off the Wi-Fi in your house.
Okay. Yeah, put me back in the guest room and I'll do that.
All right. Thanks, pal. Mike, we've known each other for years. Mike, you're part of the comic book school community, a standout member, one of my go-to creators when I need to do something design related. But let people know who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my name is Mike, and I've been a designer and an artist for almost 15 years now. I kind of went full into the comic book industry about 5 years ago. And like you were saying, I kind of run the gamut. I'm a multi-tool. So I do the art, I do the writing, I do the lettering, which it's my new passion now, actually. And I do help people with their preparations for crowdfunding as well.
Mike, why do you do lettering? Who told you to do lettering?
buddy.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's the correct
Darren
answer.
told me.
That's it. I did. I told you. Well, you know what it is? I did believe that you had a lot to offer, and getting in the straight line is very difficult these days. Oh, Darren's still trying to get back on. Are you back in, Darren? Okay, your Wi-Fi is completely frozen, so we'll remove you from the room. You're completely frozen. Okay, Mike, so we have a show where we will be talking about what's happening with Kickstarter, and you were great in helping us to do a little bit of research to get things started. So we're going to help people to understand what's going on at Kickstarter. First, give us your first slide. What are we looking at here, Mike?
Sure. So the first thing you want to really think about is who's in the market, right? Who's the competition? Who's at the top? Who's at the bottom? And while Kickstarter is pretty ubiquitous, and you would think it was at the top, as you can see there, it doesn't have the top market share. However, 21.65% is absolutely nothing to scoff at, right? They are globally ubiquitous, that they're known everywhere, and they really do control that market. We know Patreon, or I would hope so at this point, and that's a bit of a different model. However, this sort of crowdfunding for campaigns specifically, GoFundMe is good as well. I've used it personally in the past before. There are some nuances and differences, but when it comes to kind of a safe bet, Kickstarter still is number one. So they represent the lion's share of what we're looking at.
Well, and their biggest, I would imagine, in comics. I think Patreon's big with musicians, right?
Patreon is big with musicians. Believe it or not, Kickstarter, I believe the top ones were still tabletop games, if I'm not mistaken. So they're, as a matter of fact, they're in the three categories. The three bottom categories included comic books. It's very interesting. And the way they had divvied it out and came to those results also has to do with saturation. So while there are a lot of different people that are trying to crowdfund for comic books, there is so many that it ends up putting them down on the list. It's a really interesting analytic there.
Mike, 1, 2, 3. So 35, 30, 21. The next drop is 2.97, 3%.
That's correct.
So those top three are really dominant.
That's absolutely right. And I mean, Kickstarter, I believe, started in 2009. So they've been kicking up dust for quite a while. And I think that speaks to the numbers that we're seeing there. A lot of these other ones kind of came after the 2010s. And by that point, as far as being reliable, if you recall, when Kickstarter first started, there was all this trepidation about, what happens? Where does the money go if the campaign fails? All those different things. And so they've gotten the bumps and the bruises over the years to where they're a trusted platform. And I think that shows in that percentage of market share.
Now, you show number 14, Backer Kit. You're going to explain why Backer Kit?
Absolutely. It's a really interesting and important story, and it ties into Kickstarter itself. So I just wanted to input that in for now, and then we can circle the wagons. But you can see they're at number 14 with 0.06%.
Wow. All right, so let's go to the first slide here.
All righty. So as I was saying, they were launched in April of 2009. They're a U.S. company based in Brooklyn. To date, they have received $7 billion between 21.7 million backers to fund over 233,000 projects and counting. I'm sure there are ones closing today that are being funded, so this number is already inaccurate. And their revenue just for last year alone totaled 9.5 million. It is safe to say they're solid. They're looking
9.5 million. That has to be higher than that.
I was kind of surprised at that. I looked into it a bit deeper to try to figure out why that number seems so small based on how much money they do raise. And honestly, it just has to do with the fact that they don't take a whole lot from the campaign
so
itself.
That's the corporate revenue.
Correct.
Oh, okay. So that's their profit on top. That's their margin. Okay, that's fair. All right. So talk to us here. Some big names that we saw on the platform, and this is where it starts to get significant, and where Darren, feel free to jump in. We're going to talk about some of the big names that Mike has discovered and some of their trends.
Okay, so one that's really popular on Kickstarter, as some of us may know, is Top Cow, who brings to us some real classic properties and IPs. And for example, the Darkness hardcover you can see on there, a couple different things on there. Top Cow has done 13 campaigns to date. And of note, which I thought was interesting, is that 9 of them are actual hardcover reissues. So when we look at big publishers and we look at them at the platform, I think a lot of people have thought, oh, what are they doing? Individual issues? How could they come on here and do this? They've already got the market, elsewhere. But if you look at Top Cow, for example, you get to notice a strategy here. Okay. And their strategy here is going to their maybe legacy IPs, for lack of a better word, and trying to bring more awareness back to the brand, or maybe just bringing back those super fans that really want something more out of their library. And so it's perfect for Top Cow. Everything that has been fulfilled campaign wise, that has been successful, has been wildly successful. You're talking 500% crowdfunded, 12,000% crowdfunded. Everything's going well for them. And out of the 13, as I put there on the slide, 9 are hardcover reissues. The remaining ones were actually graphic novels. So again, no single issue situations going on with Top Cow. I would assume that maybe these are special projects that they've received permission for, that they're really, really supporting in that way.
All right. So let's go to Polito.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have a question about the Top Cow stuff. Do you know if they're new content or if they're repackaging existing materials?
Repackaging existing materials. Now, okay, I say that with the caveat of there will be some more behind the scenes, maybe artwork or things like that.
They're adding content, but
Mm-hmm.
when you say they're bringing back old IP, they're repackaging existing content, so they're minimizing their art and editorial costs, because everything already exists. They're just packaging it, and then they're adding stuff to the back that's for fans, that makes it a little special. Which it's a nice business plan when you think about it, and it's a nice. I'm sure comic shops don't really like it because they avoid the comic shops and they keep all the profit. And so it's a sound business plan, but I'm not sure if it's great for the industry, because it's not great for comic shops. So can't blame them though. If it's working, it's working. So more power to them.
Well, and I mean, Darren, Top Cow, I think, as an image studio, typically you'll find on the shelves at many, I don't know if most is a good approximation. Brian Polito seems to have carved out a really strong business on Kickstarter, and I don't see chaos on shelves in many comic shops.
No, you're right.
Even before this, and Brian's been publishing for 30-something years straight. Mike, give us the top line on what Brian Polito is doing.
So Brian, as we all know, is really a veteran and a master at self-promotion, I feel like. And so him bringing it to Kickstarter seems like a no-brainer. And like you said, that the presence in comic shops is not quite the same. So this seems like a perfect fit for his strategy. So as you can see, he's done 25 campaigns to date, all of which have been funded. And every campaign is at least 500% funding or more. He's got great numbers. Some of them are 2,000, 3,000%. I mean, he's set the numbers correctly. His business plan is steady, it's consistent, and I feel like if it isn't broke, don't fix it. He came out the gate with, I think, 5 campaigns at one point, in the beginning stretch of it, really was able to set the tone. And you can really see with each individual campaign from an aesthetic perspective, how he sets his campaigns, how everything looks, the uniformity and all that. And I think that's a big thing when you're when you're a small fish in the big sea, right? And you have to compete with everything else.
So I think La Muerta, that's that top right corner one right here. Darren's earlier question, I don't think this is all pre-existing materials. In fact, I think La Muerta was launched on Kickstarter, if I recall correctly.
Great.
So it's and I'm not sure, is he doing individual issues, Mike, or is he doing collections only?
He was doing a mix of both, if I recall. And you are absolutely right. It's not a reissuing in the way that Top Cow had been doing it. There are ones in there, mind you, but he is using it as an all-around crowdfunding source, not just specifically for the strategy of those reissues.
Well, let me ask, the success that he's having, do you think it's something to do with the incentives that maybe they're providing that are special or different than anybody else?
Very much so. I've seen two very distinct. The dichotomy between the strategies, is one or the other. It's either this is the product. It is what it is. It's bare bones. That way they can fulfill it and get it straight into the buyer's hands. Or we're going to incentivize you with all these different things down the road. And also post campaign, there is also funding and additional pre-orders as well. That's another part of this whole system that a lot of people don't realize. So with Brian, he's setting that product lifecycle to not only include the Kickstarter itself, but the campaign afterwards. So you'll have that mix of single issues, graphic novels, new properties, old properties, etc.
That's a good observation, Darren. Like most of them appear to be reissues, except for, oops, I lost the button, except for when it's not. Oh, happy Tuesday, everyone. Happy Tuesday, Miriam. Thanks for joining us. Even Tim Seeley kickstarted hardcover issue. Oh, yeah. You know what? I forgot. I took a lot of screenshots. I must have missed Tim Seeley's, maybe because it's not active right now, but that's a good point, Glenn. Oops. All right, let's see. I lost my screen, Darren. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, here we go. Our friend Jimmy. He is the Kickstarter machine. Mike, what do you think?
Jimmy's work speaks for itself. If he puts it out, they will come. We all know that. He's got 21 campaigns. All, of course, were funded because the quality and the bar that he sets is so high. We all come to rely on that. And the one thing that I wanted to put of note, especially with Jimmy, and then we can kind of go backwards from that, is the number of projects that are backed. So not only is Jimmy active in providing content, he's also supporting his peers. And that's an important part of this ecosystem, I feel like.
How many was he supporting?
I'm sorry?
How many was he supporting?
I want to say it was 200 was Jimmy's.
Yeah, he was one of the first people to support Apocalypse Boulevard. And he bought a pretty high tier. He is very supportive. What I have observed about Jimmy is the diversity of subject matter material. Some is crime, some is sci-fi.
Well, one thing about that, buddy, is if you know as a creator that your Kickstarter is going to get funded, then you have a liberty that a lot of people don't, and that you could take some risks and you could do all kinds of different genres and experiment with your own writing. And I think that's what you see with Jimmy is he varies his subject matter a lot. Yeah. It's kind of the same genre, but they're all different kinds of stories. So it's just a good opportunity to take risks and try these projects that you might not want to try through Diamond and traditional distribution methods.
Agreed. And at least he knows, unlike Diamond, no criticism on Diamond, you might not make your money back if you go through a traditional publisher. Bad Idea. I don't know much about them. Mike, I think you do freelance work for them, which is why we included him here. Any thoughts on Bad Idea? Yeah, I know it's one canceled.
Absolutely. So I wanted to put some kind of salient points on there to kind of illustrate again that dichotomy we're talking about, right? So we might have some industry veterans that have an established fan base, for example, and what they're bringing there helps them to continue to provide quality content through whether it's the reissues or other things. Bad Idea, on the other hand, has an interesting strategy. They are using a lot of legacy artists and putting together these tremendous campaigns, for lack of better words. With other campaigns, you're usually looking at between 4 and 10, 12 tiers, maybe on the upside, 15 tiers. They're looking at 26 tiers sometimes, interweaving tons of different artists to do different special edition comics. So if they're issuing, for example, a hardcover of Save Now, which you'll see on the screen, they'll also include 10 other prequel issues, depending on the tiers that you go into that haven't even been created yet. So they like to really pack it in there as far as just like every goodie imaginable. And there's a good and a bad to that, right? It depends on what fan bases you're bringing across from those different artists and your ability to fulfill. And so you'll see a lot of different things when it comes to Bad Idea. I find that sometimes they're a little hit and miss with that as a result, but you have to look at, again, their strategy and their presentation. Their attention to detail is bar none. I haven't seen anything like it before as somebody who's been kind of behind the veil. It's impressive. So you know, and the thing you'll see is that I like seeing on Kickstarter rather is that whole one canceled thing. So you'll be able to see when something wasn't funded and whether they relaunched that same campaign or moved on to a different concept or idea. So I wanted to point that out because if anybody's looking and trying to understand those things, that's kind of important to look at, right? It's one thing to kind of drop an idea and move to something else. It's another idea to relaunch a campaign. Why did they relaunch and what offerings or what strategy is different this time? So just some food for thought, throwing it in there. And the numbers they're making per campaign, it's nothing to scoff at. They're killing it.
Well, earlier we brought up a list of the names of these crowdfunding websites. Is there one in particular that you would use if you were going to do something, say, more international, that you wanted to sell in France and you know, or wherever? Is there?
Yes. So I've come around to a couple of different things. You make a good point, and it really comes down to not just the platform for the crowdfunding, but fulfillment, right? That's where the rubber hits the road. You make a lot of promises, and sooner or later you're doing international shipping, and the wheels come off, right? Mm-hmm. This is horror stories you can hear about all across the internet. So this is going to tie into that first slide that we brought in there. So honestly, Kickstarter is ubiquitous. In 2012, 2013 is when they started opening offices in the UK and other Asian countries. And now you're starting to see their ability to provide fulfillment and actually recommend vendors, again, incomparable to other people. So while they still hold that market share, here's an interesting bit of information. With Kickstarter, until kind of pretty recently, you used other tools to be able to compartmentalize and control those different parts of the crowdfunding process. When we're talking about shipping and logistics, all that sort of stuff, other tools were used. One of those tools, interestingly enough, was BackerKit. So BackerKit started as a pledge manager. That was their whole deal. They were helping you get to your mailing list, figure out everybody, being able to capture and update all those the shipping information, the pricing, everything under the sun. But again, they're a third-party application that was used in conjunction with Kickstarter to make everything work. Right?
All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go timeout. We're running down a rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. I want to do a separate thing on BackerKit because I think it's a really important thing to unpack.
Okay.
I'm going to jump back in, guys. How's that sound?
Let's do it.
Okay, so Mike, where are we? All right, so I just did a rapid round of current active campaigns that I found. I thought this is fascinating. Farscape already funded for almost $500,000 the graphic novel library, and I don't know who the owner of this one is. I didn't catch it inside. Well, and this is a good indication. It doesn't say who's the publisher on the thumbnail image. So when you crop it, make sure that your information's on the thumbnail. Mm-hmm. This is an art book. I sent this over to you, Mike. Rachel and Terry Dodson, career retrospective, funding still with 51 hours to go, $113,000. Now, Darren, if they tried to do this through the direct market, what do you suppose? Do you think that they would have taken in $113,000 on an art book?
Oh, not at all. I mean, there's very few artists that would even make a lot of money, maybe not even that much. But yeah, so this is much better place to market something like that. So
let's keep going here. This is Jimmy. Setting modest goals, but progressively I've noticed that he started in the early days. He started off at 2,000, then 5,000, then 10,000. He, had a $38,000 goal. That's probably his core art and editorial and printing costs, I would imagine, Darren. And then he's not quite at double with still 14 days to go. But like what I think they've done incredibly well is the thumbnail image here has everything you want. You've got a logo that pops, you've got the names of the creators, and you've got the lockup of paper films on the bottom right corner. And I just think that to me shows the experience of building these campaigns. Mike, you build anchor images, right? You know, those images have to say a lot because sometimes they get detached from, or like I did, like took a screenshot, right? If we go back, 3-issue epic jungle action story by Jimmy Palmiotti and Pierre Brito, and then we go back over here, reserve the complete Farscape graphic novel with brand new 25th anniversary special limited edition collectibles. I don't know really who is it. Jim Henson Publishing? I don't actually think so, but I don't know. But you know, it hasn't hurt them obviously because Farscape exceeds the name is so big versus something that's brand new like Fantasia.
Right.
All right.
Right. I think it's interesting to note that the different strategies, right, which is it's almost like a billboard when you're looking at Jimmy's work, where it's the eye has 8 seconds to catch all the information it needs to make a decision. And so he beautifully executes that there. The Farscape one, they're leaning on the anniversary angle, right? So they are just kind of drilling it home. New 25th anniversary special limited edition. And like you said, if you don't necessarily know who does it, there's not name recognition other than Farscape. So just an interesting dichotomy between the strategies and how they're approaching it.
Very true. And then we look at Jimmy. Darren, you had asked this earlier. This says it's a 3-issue epic jungle action story. Compare that to this one by Carl Kiesel. Now, Carl Kiesel, well-known comic book writer, is going to be doing a 252-page oversized hardcover. How big is that? That's pretty big, right?
It's huge, yeah.
But his cost, his starting point was 20,000, and he's raised 42 so far. Versus Jimmy, who's like a machine, he's already exceeded 53,000, and he still has 14 days to go. That's not to say with 9 days to go, Carl Kiesel won't get a whole bunch of bids, because usually in your last day or two, you get a couple of people you do that last push, but that's still pretty good if you're putting out your own graphic novel.
Yeah, that's like 12 issues worth of content in a book. So if it's all new content, that's a big expense. If it's republishing or packaging existing content, then it makes a little more sense to me. But new content for 12 issues, that's a huge undertaking. And it seems like maybe a low number for the goal if it's all new content.
Yeah, and I absolutely positively love this image. I love the negative space. However, once again, looking at the thumbnail, A, there's no video. B, there's no indication that this is Impossible Jones Volume 2. So somebody who liked Impossible Jones, because right here it says Impossible Jones Volume 2, doesn't necessarily know that. You don't get the link up of this is Carl Kiesel. I'm assuming this is David Hahn. I don't know. But Arthur Adams' name should be here. I just think that like when you put the names, when you're selling off of names, you need to have those names there.
Yeah. But it's successful. It probably could be a little more successful, but it's doing a good job. So
he's doing a good job. And I mean, it looks like David Hahn's art. Okay. Scott Snyder, all he wanted was $3,000. Now, I don't know, is this prose or I'm assuming this is comics. Oh, it's from Scott Snyder's writing class with a foreword by Scott. Okay, I didn't understand this. So they're basically using the relationship that they have with Scott Snyder's to build an anthology, a little bit like Comic Book School when we did the anthology, right, Mike?
Mm-hmm, exactly.
I still don't know if it's prose or comics, though. Kind of hard to tell.
I'm going to assume comics, obviously Scott Snyder. It would make sense that he would be doing it. But it looks like they funded. But again, strictly with my marketing brain, I would want to see Scott Snyder's name much larger because I want to be able to say, that's that, right? This is all wasted space right here. This is all just trapped space. You could put the cloakroom down here and then really pump up Scott Snyder's name. I mean, Scott Snyder is a huge name in comics. I'd like to see that name bigger. Darren, any thoughts? You don't have to agree with me.
I don't necessarily agree because his name's on top, so that works, and it's also on top in the headline. But I would like to see the format. So you know, to say like it's a 48-page, I don't know, something. Give me an idea of what it is other than an ongoing series featuring short stories. Like, is it just a regular like 32-page comic? Is it? I don't know what it is. I would be buying. Unless it says it somewhere else, but I don't see it up here.
Yeah, it does seem a bit too vague just off of the first impression.
Yeah, and I mean, it depends on what you're going. It depends on what the inside is like. You know, it's a little hard to tell at first. You know, you got an alien. You've got looks like a dinosaur. I realize now that this is like a closet door with like a Batman arm coming out, and the dominant image is a person on a laptop.
He's writing short stories. I mean, I like the idea of an anthology series. It's just I'm not sure exactly what I'm buying if I'm buying this. That's all.
Yeah, but you know, if it is an anthology of first-time published writers, they are successful, and I think that that's the most important thing. You know, he's not expecting to raise the kind of money if he were launching his own series,
right?
But he's done a real justice for I think are his students. It's Scott Snyder's writing class, it says. Cherry Jubilee. I don't know if you remember Cherry Pop-Tart, Darren. Do you know this book, Mike Ponce?
No idea.
So it was a very early riff on Archie comics. So it was basically if Archie comics were pornography, basically.
Because of course.
And you can see even from the image, it looks like Josie and the Pussycats,
right,
on the cover there. It's very funny. It's silly stuff. I don't know if Larry Welts is still alive. I'm not 100% sure. But, you know, you can see that Cherry Jubilee has an audience, $16,000 and 26 days to go. So it's basically a 4-issue collection. How many pages would that be, Darren, about?
80 to 90, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Relatively small graphic novel. So not terribly large, but certainly they're making their money back. And Cherry Jubilee, I believe, is black and white. So fairly inexpensive to print, much cheaper than color. Right, Darren?
Oh, absolutely. Less than half the price. So, you know, I don't know how much additional content they're putting in there, or if they're putting stickers or anything else. It looks like a hardcover. So yeah, it looks like a good value.
It says trade paperback on the top, so maybe it's just trade paperback. But Mike, you're gonna prompt us later in the line here. It says not safe for work at NSFW. I know that you have a slide on that down the road.
Sure.
Daniel Warren Johnson. Oh, Skybound. That's Walking Dead. I just blanked. Robert Kirkman's company at Image. So their studio, Skybound, puts out books the way Top Gal puts out books as a studio. And he has put out, Kirkman has put out quite a lot of really good work. Some that he's written, some that he's sponsored as a publisher. But if you look at this, he's already $128,000 and there's still 21 days to go. I'm not familiar with Daniel Warren Johnson. Are you, Darren?
No, not at all. But it says he's an Eisner nominated creator. So, I mean, it looks like a really solid book, but I'd have to Google it to see what he's done, to be honest. So.
Hey, Mike, and I've also noticed a couple times. I've also noticed a couple times that people have changed their anchor image. This says it funded in 27 minutes. Is that a strategic thing?
Yeah, that's actually encouraged. Kickstarter provides in their branding assets some of those actual images, just funded, launching soon. They try to hold your hand through the whole thing, and they encourage you updating them.
Hold on one second. I'm live on my show right now. Is everything okay? All right, I'll call you back. Bye. That was my daughter. When she's on, we pick up. So Daniel Warren Johnson, Philip Burnett says, is a pretty phenomenal artist. Yeah, you can see from the anchor image there that he's pretty good. And then Gatilla says that makes Daniel Warren Johnson kept in comics. Kept in comics. Oh, Mike, hold on. Let's
I have issue number 1.
Nice.
Oh, so this is a reprint. This is a recollection.
Mm-hmm.
Is it good?
It's fantastic. I love the art on it. It's extremely, like Glenn said, like, he's awesome. He's amazing, and the story is fantastic.
Well, look at this. There, we're out of it.
Well, he does Transformers, right now.
Skybound
so.
Transformers. Okay. I got excited and typoed to the extreme. Ooh, okay. Captain Comics. Me. I like when Gatilla goes and fixes things. But hold that up again real quick, Mike, with your smudgy webcam.
You like that?
Do you have Windex, Mike? I mean, do you think maybe next time you can clean that webcam? You look like you're in a fog.
It's me and Jane Goodall.
Yeah, there you go. There's an obscure reference. Let's see the inside.
It's beautiful, beautiful art. Let me see if I can find a good page here. It's fantastic. Little
Looks
visceral.
like they're all good pages, Mike.
Yeah, no, every single part of this is amazing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So this is not just like any dude comic. This is,
right.
All right.
You're talking about Eisner nominated, like a master kind of, So yeah, he's going to do well, especially coming from the company that does Walking Dead, So that's going to succeed. Skybound's got a nice package there.
Yeah. So my apologies to Daniel Warren Johnson for not being familiar with you. Apparently, Glenn Gatilla drools over the artwork. And then she says, oh, lol, oh gosh, it's the artist's way. Smuggy cameras, get with the pencil program, buddy. I know, Darren and I are a little bit behind. We don't keep up with as much current, although Darren, you do. You keep up with a lot more current talent than I do.
Yeah, I do. I have to. But that one, something you can't know all of them, and it's just back
in the Wizard days, we did know all of them. All right.
We did. We knew a lot of them.
Garth Ennis with AWA again, looking really good. Funded in 7 hours. It's got a video. It's got the AWA logo. It's got Garth and Goran. These guys had done Punisher together. It just looks great. And obviously people are responding to it with 528 backers, $48,000.
Does AWA still use comic shops, or are they starting to go more towards Kickstarter now?
I don't know. I've never seen an AWA comic in my comic shop, and I've
seen a few, but I just wondered what the mix is. If, like, for instance, is this book also going to be in comic shops? And like, is this a special version of it?
It looks like deluxe director's cut. We would have to have read the details of it, but I don't know. What I'm observing is that there is a lot of really unique material that doesn't make it to the comic shops, which, maybe as publishers, they're determining that their things like this are not doing well in comic shops or are not getting ordered, and they're doing it here, but then right? The comic shops don't have a chance to sell it. So it's tough to tell if something would sell in a comic shop if it never makes it there, or if the director's cut. Does that kill the value of the comic shop version?
No more than a variant 1 in 50 cover would kill the value of the regular cover. They're already
that's exactly what it does. A 1 in 50 variant kills the value of the regular cover.
Right. You're almost buying a reader copy right off the bat. It's never going to be worth
anything if there's a 1 in 50.
So
Terry Moore, very active, although he's pretty well represented in comic shops with his Strangers in Paradise and all of his Rachel Rising. I'm surprised that he does Kickstarter because he does so well in comic shops.
I would think the profit margin is so much better in Kickstarter if you're going to get this percentage funded, basically, 10 times over. It's much more profitable than going to a comic shop, and you have a lot more freedom to do whatever kind of story you want.
What do you think, Ponce?
I'm super intrigued by some of these ones that you put up, like for example with the Extremity and Skybound, because some of these artists, it's a collection, it's a graphic novel collection. I'm thinking of, how do you get your royalties, if any, off of that when you have an existing contract and say Image puts out your graphic novel, for example? You already know what that percentage is going to be because of the overhead that's cut out of it, the distribution that's cut out of it. I wonder if any of that equation changes for the creators in this. I'm really intrigued by that.
I would imagine that would have to be. Well, let's Darren, you want to read this next one?
By going to KS publishers or Kickstarter publishers are able to skip going through direct market orders and straight into the hands of purchasers. Which is essentially means there's a much greater profit margin, and it cuts out the middleman. So,
and then he added something.
Also, the pie gets split up less for the creative teams, meaning everyone who worked on it gets more money. So, yeah.
Yeah, so there is definitely, there's a new economy to it. And Mike, I think that's a good question. If you're putting out a book and through AWA the way Garth Ennis is, well, I'm sure Garth Ennis has a sweetheart deal, but you as a regular creator, your deal will probably not be as good as Garth Ennis's deal. But this is interesting because Terry Moore has no problem getting into, I don't know, I would assume has no problem getting into comic shops. But he's 24 days to go. He's got $133,000 pledged. That's huge.
Yeah, that's great.
And it's low risk for him as opposed to, would they allow that for, say, a newer creator doing a type? I'm really interested to see, because if a newer creator comes on the scene, are they willing to do that because the risk is higher going on Kickstarter if nobody knows them?
Right.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you need to pair up with somebody who has a track record of success if you want to achieve the same kind of numbers. Otherwise, you're just going to have to start off, barely making it and try and, start from the ground up.
All right, Darren, I'm going to ask you to read again. I like your reading voice. You got that silky voice. Catilla adds something here.
Maybe the contracts in regards to the specific IP have expired, and now they're using this Kickstarters to generate interest in something new from said creators of the expired IP.
That's an interesting way to inject more life into it and more mileage out of it, for sure.
Well, like Darren said, art editorial, once it's done, now you're just repackaging. It is assuming that there is the opportunity to republish something. It is a lot less expensive and a lot less risky to republish something.
Right, especially if you're planning to relaunch something and you have content that is relevant that you want people to refamiliarize. You can repackage it in a way that leads right up into your new launch. And
that's what we're looking at here, right? Terry Moore's got a pretty dedicated, loyal audience, and he's like, hey, here's some early sketches and webtoons. That's it, Coffin Comics, we talk about Brian Pulido, $415,000, still 3 days to go. This is just proof that Brian has done a great job of nurturing his audience. He knows exactly what to do. If you look on his socials, you'll see photographs of him packaging, of him signing. He really has outreach to his community. And it's clearly working.
It's a well-oiled machine. There's not much to say when it comes to Brian.
I mean, it's $415,000. Just wrap your head around that. That is huge. Burnett says, "Dang, go Brian." And hold hold on. Extremity came out in 2017, has been done for at least 5 or 6 years. Okay, so to your point, Darren, you know, the Extremity is just or Mike, Extremity was just, you know, they're repackaging it after being, you know, out of the limelight for a while, and hence people are like, oh, I love this. I'd like a packaged edition.
I think it's great too, because obviously the awareness might be brought back. It might bring it to some new readers, and then the IP itself can maybe be repitched again to studios. This is how this all breathes life back into it. And
publishers have been doing this for years. I mean, Marvel would do 6 issues, and then like the next month they solicit the trade paperback for whatever was in the last 6 issues, and they would just keep repeating that and try and double dip on the content that they created. And it's a valid business plan. Some people like to read it as a trade. Other people like to collect the individual issues. So it really makes sense, and it's less risk when you don't have to pay for new art.
That's right. And we had an you know, there's a great interview with Brian Pulido that I saw a while back, Comic Book School or something like that. That's right, boys and girls and children of all ages. You can go on Comic Book School's YouTube channel and find interviews with many fancy creators, including Brian Pulido, talking about Kickstarter. So worth checking that out. And George says, hey, please support my Kickstarter. Okay, George, we will. Dean Haspiel, independent creator, probably best known for his work on Vertigo. Very close to his goal with 22 days to go. But another interesting thought, you know, I think that is just interesting to see that he's just appears to be a independent creator and getting his work out there. Steve Rude, always loved Steve Rude's artwork. Nexus has been out of the public for a very, very long time. I think it's really exciting to see a new Nexus, but that probably opens the door for art books and Nexus reprints. I don't know, you know, when you see something like this, you go like, oh, if this goes well, and obviously he's already twice at his goal with 20 days to go, you could see a lot more Nexus material being probably queued up.
Yeah, his work's beautiful. So yeah, I'd be interested to see what the work looks like.
Oh, it's going to be gorgeous. Okay, we're going to have to go through the speed round because we're getting close to the end. Mike, take us through the last of your show and tell.
All right, so just reiterating the same points that we've been going through. Which titles get funded in that sea of all that competition? Seems to be a lot of legacy artists that have the fan base and have built that over years. Niche projects where it's something truly unique that sometimes cuts through the fluff, and not safe for work content and the incentives within those projects, what we all know, they'll get you some money.
Darren, not safe for work content. We play it too safe, right? We got to get on this NSFW stuff.
Yeah, we do. I got to admit that. I mean, I'm always thinking about what is my, daughter going to think, or my mother-in-law or whatever. So, it's not the kind of thing that a writer should be thinking when they're writing. They should just be thinking about the story and doing justice to that story. So yeah, you're right.
I blush too much when I draw the anatomy, so I just can't do it.
I blush when you draw that too, Mike.
It's all hard like that,
Mike, we're going to flow through Backer Kit because they're 0.6% of the marketplace, but just tell us real quick, and then we're going to go to the next slide. And
you got it. So just reiterating what I was saying before, they started in 2012, and they were a pledge manager for Kickstarter. So they were an additional third-party app that Kickstarter used to actually continue to raise funds after the Kickstarter. So if somebody already fulfilled a campaign, but they could possibly sell more units of a comic, for example, Backer Kit was the way to go. So in 2022, they built a crowdfunding platform, I spelled that wrong, to coincide with their pledge manager. And now within that short time, they've already reached 4.3 million in revenue for 2023, which is pretty impressive compared to that small market share. And then when you look at big names on the platform, number one, let me just put it out. The competition for comics, it's not that bad. There's not that many comic campaigns on there, and they're all getting funded. So that's just something to note on there. Those small $2,000, $3,000 campaigns, they're getting funded. Source Point Press is on there. Magnetic Press. This is really interesting. They're using public domain IP. Bram Stoker's Dracula, Frankenstein. Earned over 100K for this reissue. Beautiful hardcover. A lot of work goes into it, but just something to think about. And
then one near and dear to home, Comic Book School's very own A.A. Rubin, and you're working on this campaign. Am I right, Mike?
That is correct. I'm helping him with the campaign itself and all the campaign assets, and I'm also doing the lettering on this book. So it's a fun adult children's book. The Awful Alphabet. It's real dark and really funny, and it's going to make a good coffee table book. And we're putting it on BackerKit, and they've been wonderful. The support's been amazing. What's up, Ari? They've been fantastic. The way they've contacted us, the way that they walk you through the campaign is something to be marveled at. So really recommend looking into it. And
legend has it that Ari is going to be a guest in one of our upcoming shows where we'll talk about the Awful Alphabet.
Oh, that sounds awful.
All right, so we're here at the end, guys. The motto for 2024 is do the things. If you want to make comics, do the things, and all the things are hard. Nothing's easy. If it were easy, we would have all done it already. And let's face it, you got to do the things. Guys, thank you so much for joining. Make sure you check out my most recent story in Valiant Comics, very Valentine's Day special, probably still on the stand somewhere or digitally available. I don't know. I'm not involved with that part. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Give us a little bit of love. Tell a friend, tell an enemy to follow the show. Guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It's been a pleasure to see you. And we'll see you guys all again next Tuesday on Comic Book School Live. See ya.
See ya.